Babes, and warm welcome to all our officers. Welcome po sa Rotary, the team ng Rotary Year 2021-2022. Okay, now let us move on to the highlight of tonight's program. We are now going to hear our guest speaker deliver his talk about leadership, and to formally introduce him, may I call on the incoming District Secretary, Edwin Chu.
Good evening, everybody. It gives me great pleasure to introduce to you our guest of honor speaker for tonight. The very first time I met our guest speaker was in 2014 when he was invited to talk about membership, and I was also the one who introduced him then. He would later become one of the most sought after speakers in the district on various topics like leadership, Rotary Club Central, strategic planning, public imaging, etc. And after you listen to him, you will know why I said so. He's a member of the Rotary Club of Meycauayan East, District 3770, a past president from Rotary year 2001 to 2002, a former assistant Rotary coordinator for membership, and currently an assistant regional public imaging coordinator for Zone 10A. By profession, he is a licensed mechanical engineer, having obtained his degree at MIT, the Mapua Institute of Technology. Later, he earned his master's degree in business administration, a summa cum laude at the Lady of Fatima University Graduate School, and got his doctorate degree in business administration at the Colegio de San Juan de Letran Graduate School of Business. Aside from his Rotary engagements, he is a lecturer at the University of Asian Pacific, mentoring the millennials and millennials once before. If you are friends with him at Facebook, you will see that he is a dedicated family man, happily married to Cynthia, a dentist by profession, and also holds a doctorate in education, with whom he has 6 children. He never skips going to church, having lunch, and going to the movies with his brood every Sunday. But that was before the pandemic struck. He is a buddy to everyone and has always been the life of the group whenever there is a get-together. I say no more to avoid any secrets to be spilled out involuntarily. Ladies and gentlemen, would you please give your warmest welcome to our resource speaker, Assistant Regional Public Imaging Coordinator, past present, Ramon Dacayo.
Thank you very, very much. Edwin, shall I call Edwin? PP Edwin? DS Edwin? Tapusin ko muna ron ba? Saan ako mapunta eh. When Edwin was asking me about my profile so that they can introduce me personally and professionally, I was telling him, medyo sawa na ako magpa-introduce kasi halos palagi nila sinasabi introduction ko eh. What about we change the whole ball game? Instead of reading the formalities of my introduction, say something about what you know about me. So sabi niya, hindi siya nakakakuha. Sabi niya, sige, we will call it your call. Hala ko talagang sisimplihin na lang niya. So talaga resourceful pare, no? Marami pa rin nakukuha. And then, para ka rin nagbasa eh. So, but at least, now I can thank Edwin very much because talagang nag-resource siya para hanapin yung mga detalye ng aking introduction, not unlike before wherein I easily handed over the piece of paper for them to read, to which I appreciate very much. All right. Thank you very much and have a pleasant good evening. I am assuming that I am coming in quite loud and clear to everybody. Wala namang nagre-react dyan. Okay, I am very much and utterly pleased to be back once again to share with you another, sandali lang po, diretso ko na to. All right. Ngayon ako mag-check. Okay lang tayo, no? You can already see my PowerPoint, I suppose. Alright, sige. Para dire-diretso na yung statement ko. Okay. I am utterly pleased, fellow Rotarians, to be back once again to share with you another session of enlightenment, and pragmatic engagement. Allow me, friends, to present to you my share, leading the new future back. Alam niyo, nung unang tinanong sa akin ni Gov. Ernie, paano nangyari yung future naging back? Kung walang akala niya, yung daw back, yun daw kinakamot ng pagkamot pagka medyo makatayin yung likod. Sabi ko, pwede rin, kaya lang as an assumption, pero actually hindi yan yung likod na sinasabi ko. To which I shall now be discussing to you in full detail what do I mean by future back. You know, guys, 2 weeks ago, if I'm not mistaken, I had a chance to go to a local drugstore to purchase my set of maintenance medicine. I'm not gonna tell you the name of that store, for I might be perceived as commercially endorsing the store. After going through the rituals of QR scanning, temperature check, and alcohol wash, I was then led to the next available counter. In that counter, there was a red 2 feet by 2 feet square markings on the floor in front of each counters, implyingly seemingly that you should not go outside of it during transaction. Otherwise, ikaw ang taya. The counter, as you can see, was set up with a large plastic sheet separating the pharmacist from us customers. Initially, it gave me an eerie feeling that something contagious was about to explode, and that either they are protecting themselves from us zombies, or we are the ones being protected from their biological mini lab, quote unquote. So much exaggeration? Well, probably. So, I gave her my prescription note, ID, booklet, and then started encoding those lists one by one until she ran across 2 items which are not available on stock in their branch. She then went back to me and explained and offered the service that they will be the one to fetch those 2 items for me with the other branch. And all I have to do is to sit down for about 10 minutes or so and wait for it. At first I was thinking, if I will be the one to buy those myself, then I will again be doing through the same procedures all over again, notwithstanding the traffic I have to go through and the availability of parking space upon arrival. So since their service is free of charge anyway, then might as well take their offer and wait for the fetch. So I took their seat and marveled those assorted nappies on display in front of me. A few minutes more, then I overheard probably the manager instructing the guard to immediately lock the door and not to allow any customer to come in. At first, I said, "Hey, what's going on? Is this the biological mini lab hidden at the back that is now starting to blow up? Why not let me out first?" Jesus Christ. I started to become paranoid, and almost instantly, my good Lord, until 2 personnel, presumably cleaners, came out dressed to kill, complete with their face mask and face shield, on with their both hands, wearing surgical gloves to boot. Then using antiseptics mixed with alcohol, they started rubbing and sanitizing each and every corner of the store, from floors to walls to each and every boxes and nappies on display. Out of curiosity, quoting the usual taglines of RC Bagong Bayan, Manila, to which I quote, I then asked one of the cleaners, Boss, alas tres pa lang ng hapon magsasarado na kayo?" And without hesitation, he replied, "Hindi po, regular sanitizing lang po namin ito, 4 times a day." Wow, 4 times a day? These guys must be serious. I then said to myself, maganda din naman pala nagagawa ni COVID. Isipin mo, kung hindi dahil kay COVID, maglilinis kaya itong mga ito 4 times a day, every single day? I doubt it. Minutes ticked. Wala pa yung delivery ko. But then I chanced upon the other cleaners. And then I asked my next intriguing question. Miss, matanong lang kita ha. Sa tingin mo kaya, pag umalis na tong si COVID, hihinto na din kaya yung pagsasanitize nyo na 4 times a day, every day? Guys, do you know what her answer to me? Almost instantly, she replied back by saying that there is the standing memo already cascaded to all branches of that drugstore that sanitizing procedures will now be a part of their daily cleaning routine to make sure that their products are safe and clean whenever possible. Well, good job. However, though the last part still remains to be seen. So, sa haba-haba ng storya ko, ano ang moral ng story? Wala po. Nakwento ko lang. Kasi kung hindi ko isasama to, 15 minutes lang tapos na yung lecture ko. Alright. Mahirap yung walang i-lecture. COVID-19 has transformed life. Babalik tayo doon sa drugstore mamaya. COVID-19 has transformed life as we know it, affecting our daily lives personally, academically, and professionally. As the world begins to slow the tedious process of learning how to reopen safely, business and communities alike are looking for leaders, for guidance to help navigate this pandemic with success. While some may view that this strain of coronavirus as a major roadblock, others see it as an opportunity for organizations and civic clubs as well to have a fresh start, forced to optimize their performance and their vision through progressive ideas and innovation. In the midst of all these things, we have learned that even through the most difficult times, a new normal is formed with pioneers from all walks of life leading the way. Having said, great leaders address short-term threats, but also engage their teams with a vision of the future. This isn't just a reminder about annual goals that we normally do in our portals every year, but rather a compelling future state that is 5, 10, or even 100 years in the future. In the very recent interview conducted with Mr. Clayton Christensen of the Strategy and Innovation Management Consultancy Innosight, he described how being a visionary can be a learning skill. Referencing Steve Jobs and Bill Gates as visionaries, Christensen embraced a visionary but learnable mindset that we call future back, as opposed to present forward. To fully understand what the concept really means, allow me to conceptualize the idea by this infographic. Fellas, every year, starting next January, you guys as president-elect will start to motivate and involve your club members in encoding your plans and programs and goals for your Rotary year. Utilizing today's year, 2020-2021, as your reference point, you will start encoding your goals as to what you want to happen and transpire in the near future as you step in to your presidency come July 1, 2021. However, these 2 years will never come into play without you taking notice of a reference point which have been conducted by your club previous year from today, which was last year, 2019-2020. All the things and accomplishments that your club president have accomplished will now be utilized as a sustainable project that you can do as you move on forward. And all the shortcomings that have been conducted the year before and today's year will now be reviewed and furnish the necessary mitigating steps in order for you to improve further. For me to discuss further and for you to further appreciate what I'm trying to tell you, allow me to present to you in a more vivid infographic statement. The 2020-21 is today, the year where ideas and action will be put into paper. In these action plans, you will see your club and your members into the future as you write your goals and objectives on your Rotary Club Central for their following year. However, not having a clue, you have to see yourself from what you have done last year, 2019, 2021, as your reference point, without which you can never see what you have accomplished this year, and you will never know what are the things you need to do for you to succeed and for you to undertake your objectives and ideas for the following year. This particular strategic planning, to those strategists who are quite familiar with the strategic plan, know this by present tense on what they call the present forward schematics. This present forward thinking of strategic plan tells us on how we can look forward by utilizing present and past actions as our reference point. However, last March, something had happened in our year of service. It was during that month where COVID-19 came into play, okay, that tends to disrupt all the operational aspects of our club, not only in our club, not only in our country, but worldwide phenomenon, which has caused so much pandemic. All of those supposed action plans that we have embodied to be utilized this year, which was based on the concept last year, was never or has never been accomplished simply because our actions were very much limited by the number of situations and rulings and guidelines that the IATF has imposed in order for us not to get this necessary sickness. In that sense, a lot of activities that we're supposed to undertake were not put in place. That is how COVID-19 have eradicated much of our scenario as a club and as a Rotarian. Now, what do we call this future back scenario? This is what I call the necessary strategic plan in which is being put in place in order to mitigate the present forward. Simply because the present forward is no longer implementable because the very basis or the foundation cannot be put into place. However, the very foundations, and I will repeat, the very foundations of why Rotary is existing will never be diminished. It is still there. The only thing that will be needed to be changed, and change we must, is the way we provide the action plan. And that is where the future back will come into play. So what is then this future back as compared, okay, to present forward strategic plan? In the future back, we still have these ideas and action plan. We still set our action plan into our future as we see ourselves moving forward on how to do our plans and programs as reported in our Club Central. However, this will not come in handy because the coronavirus or the COVID-19 still exists in the equation. No less than the government itself has stipulated that the COVID-19 will not yet be eradicated by next year. We have to understand that the only way for us to mitigate this COVID-19 is by having the presence of a vaccine. But the government has only stated that only 20 million of this vaccine will be made available by first quarter of next year. By the next batch of vaccines, we still do not know where will it come and will it be made available. If it will be available sooner, that will be good. But if it will be made available later, that is one thing we have to consider. Another thing, this vaccine that will be made available is not there to eradicate COVID, but rather the vaccine that will be utilized is only for us to hasten our immune level. But the vaccine will still be there within our community. So, whether we like it or not, the COVID virus will still be there, hounding our back, hounding in front, and still within the equation and try to mess up all the activities that we have. But then again, we have to write our goals because without any goal, we cannot perform our tasks. Now, how does it differ from present forward? In future back, we will still be writing our goals and objectives. However, once this is written, utilizing COVID as an included in the equation, we will now go back, okay, from what we have written in the future and start our plans and programs from zero, meaning we will not take into consideration the back projects and accomplishments we have undertaken simply because it is not implementable anymore. It is not doable anymore. What are those that are not implementable? If previously you are conducting medical missions, for sure you cannot do medical missions anymore. If previously you are conducting vaccinations for the dogs, okay, by now you cannot do vaccinations anymore. If previously you are conducting Operation Tule during March, definitely you cannot do it anymore. And there are a lot of projects that are practically not doable simply because we are being limited by our actions, okay, and plans through the guidelines of the IFTF. So what now are those actions and programs that we can do? Okay, those that does not have any contact. And those are the things that we begin to write. Right? That we have not undertaken before, but we can do because those are the only things that are allowing us to do for our future. Otherwise, we can just simply write those plans and programs and report it to Governor Robert, the things we can write down as a goal, but not cannot be implemented. So in this future back, we start with a clean slate, a clean sheet of paper, okay, starting now as your starting point and move on. But this time, we will be moving on with a different sense of direction. And what is that sense of direction? In the present forward concept, leaders build their organizations in increments, following the rules and procedures that work today. Future back leaders, in contrast, visualize what their organization could be, starting from a clean sheet of paper, then mobilize whatever they need in order to bring it into being. Future back thinking doesn't replace present forward thinking. It complements and completes it instead. Fellow Rotarians, future back is both a way of thinking that allows leader to envision the best possible future for our organization and a disciplined process that allows us to bring it into being, embracing both its core, the business units, and the collection of emerging beyond the core opportunities that may evolve to replace it. So, how then can leaders overcome their cognitive bias toward the status quo of what you call the present forward fallacy? This status quo that I'm referring to are the customs and traditions that is existing in your club that doesn't want to change. Ito yung mga sinasabi ng mga elders. Bakit natin babaguhin ang ating sistema? For the past 100 years or for the past so many decades, we have already surpassed so many challenges and we have already survived. Why the need to change our system if we have already survived it in the past? Ang gagawin lang natin, intayin lang natin mawala yan. Darating na yung ating vaccine and once the vaccine is there, we will go back to our original state. Fine, well and good. But the thing is, one question that needs to be answered, when? Will it be July? Well, fine and good. How about if it happens in August? So much so in December. By the time it goes on March, then your term is already ending. And by the time you keep on waiting, your office is already done and you cannot do anything anymore. Simply because the status quo is preventing you to change your system. This is way by means you need to introduce the future back to your present members, especially the seniors, for them to understand fully what your club is facing nowadays, to which I am pretty sure they are already experiencing it since the month of March has started to affect our club meetings. Of course, these club meetings are also one of those that have been affected. In order for us to infuse this future back thinking throughout your organization, I shall be introducing to you 5 questions that will guide you to become a resilient leader in overcoming those difficulties and those challenges and convert those into an opportunity. Utilizing your club members to rally with you in making sure that these questions will be tackled accordingly. The first question will be, what position can you attain during and after the COVID pandemic? What makes a smart strategic decision? You must understand your organization's position in your environment. Who are you in your community? What role do you play in your ecosystem? You must also understand, where are you headed? Can you shut down your programs and projects and reopen and change after the pandemic? Can you regain lost ground? Will you be bankrupt and can emerge as a leader fueled by developments during lockdown? Guys, we hear so many organizations that are questioning their viability post-pandemic. We also hear of private firms accelerating their growth because their value propositions are high in demand. Thinking of home office equipment, internet-enabled communication, and collaboration tools and home delivery services. Rest, definitely, on my first story that I told you. This particular drugstore have already moved head and shoulders to change their system of operation, making sure that even this pandemic is gone, they will be introduced what they call the post-pandemic operation, which they will assure of themselves and their stakeholders that their company's operation is vivid, valid, and vibrant. Similarly, even those other restaurants, okay, and hotels that you now see, okay, during this pandemic are already changing their system in order to make sure that once we dine in and that once we check in, They will be providing us the safety measures that is needed, okay, for us to be to make sure that we will not be caught with this COVID-19 virus. With all those private companies that I simply mentioned, changing their system, what more is the Rotary Club to answer and goes within the bounds of what is culturally set, okay, as what I call the present future mindset. Fellow presidents-elect, now is the time for you to talk with your respective club members. Things have changed already since COVID-19 came into play since March, and things will be there as we move on, even post-pandemic. And we have to change ourselves, to change our system, to change our lifestyle, to change our mentality and administration to make sure that we can live up with whatever things that we will step into once this pandemic comes into effect. You have to understand, all of us, as I have mentioned in my previous webinar, all of us are walking in an uncharted territory. Nobody can ever say what will happen tomorrow, the day after tomorrow, next week, and the week after that. So it's up for us to become resilient. It's up for us to see ourselves into the future, way, way out in the future, so that we can have ourselves prepared, so that if in case that those things, it may happen or not, we are sure that we are ready. Okay, our club will vibrant, and our club has already made the necessary measures to make sure that they are alive and healthy. Fellow Rotarians, because of such factors, organizations will now differ in their resiliences. So much so, the same is true with our Rotary clubs. You should take steps now to map up your probable decision when the pandemic eases. Number two, what is your plan for bouncing back? Once this pandemic is gone, what will be your step and what will be your plan of action that you will execute? A plan is a course of action pointing the way to the position you hope to attain. It should explicate what you need to do today to achieve your objectives tomorrow. In the current context, the question is what you must do to get through the crisis and go back to business when it ends. The lack of plan only exacerbates disorientation in an already confusing situation. When drawing up the steps you intend to take, think, my friends, broadly and deeply and take a long view. Next, how will your culture and identity change? By all means, kailangan sumama ito. Perspective means the way an organization sees the world in itself. And by all means, the way we see our culture is the way we see our perspectives. In all likelihood, your culture and identity will change as a result of this pandemic. And the culture and identity of those situated in Pasay are definitely different from those situated in Cavite. Similarly, they're also all the more different to those clubs situated in Manila. And by all means, Mindoro is not an exemption. A crisis can bring people together and facilitate a collective and spirit of endurance. But it can also push people apart, with individuals disconnecting from one another and predominantly looking after themselves. Guys, it is crucial to consider how your respective perspectives might evolve. One, how prepared are you and your organization to culturally deal with this crisis? which I have already made emphasis. Number two, will the ongoing situation bring your members together or drive them apart? I've seen a lot of Rotary clubs. They are all meeting, but not everybody is engaged. There are even one club. I can even mention, I will not if I will no longer mention to you the name, although it's not situated in your district. It is located in the northwest part of Luzon. Since day one, the pandemic started in March. The president have already concluded that time that they will not hold meeting under the assumption that this pandemic will only be short term. However, 1 week have passed, 1 month have passed, and guess what? Her term passed, okay, June 30, and they did not meet simply because she already had this assumption that the members are not interested anyway. Pumasok ngayon ang problema ng President-elect because the President-elect has to set the organization back to its own feet. She has to talk to each and every member because the members have already lost interest. There are also some clubs who are meeting, okay, online. However, there are some clubs who opted to meet in person and have opted to wait for the pandemic to go. In one occasion where I was in attendance, a question was asked to our President Holger Kanap as to what he can say on the present scenario of us holding our virtual meeting. Similarly, he stated that based on his experience on clubs that are virtually meeting in Germany, they said, according to these clubs, that once this pandemic is already out in the picture and they will go back to the new normal, they said that they will still indicate not necessarily an in-person meeting, but not entirely a virtual meeting. Because they somehow, one way or another, have seen the good side of conducting virtual meetings. So what they have decided, if in case, okay, the pandemic is through, they will introduce a blended type of meeting whereby there are some instances wherein they will meet in person and there are some instances wherein they will meet virtually. In case the next wave of pandemic will come into play, they are already ready because the mixed blending has been put into place. It's just a matter of going from one system to another. This is how Rotary clubs already think of the future. They do not only think of the in-person type of meeting, but they are already considering not necessarily this COVID, but it may be another pandemic that may come into play and that they are already ready on what fallback actions that they can do in terms of meeting venues. Number three, will your club see your organization differently when this is over? No doubt, as what I have explained to you, those clubs in Germany have answered this third question. Past presidents, your answers will inform what you can achieve when this pandemic ends. Next, what projects do you need to launch, run, and coordinate at post-pandemic? Pag natapos na ba itong pandemic na to, this is where you will start writing your future back. Those items that you can do, and you will eliminate those items that you cannot. Your answers to this question should point you to a set of projects for tackling your coronavirus-related problems. The challenge is to prioritize and coordinate initiatives that will future-proof your club. Beware, President-elect, of starting numerous projects that all depend on the same critical resources, which might be specific to only individuals. Yung bang presidente lang ang nagtatrabaho at yung mga miyembro ay hindi na nagpa-participate. With too many initiatives, you could end up with a war over resources that delays or derails your strategic response. And lastly, how prepared are you to execute your plans and projects? Fellow Rotarians, finally, you need to assess your organization's preparedness. Are you ready to able to accomplish the projects you've outlined, particularly if much of your organization has shifted to remote work? Kaya mo na ba siyang i-implement? We see big differences in preparedness at the individual, team, organization, and even international levels. The resources at hand, along with the speed and quality of decision-making process, vary greatly. Hindi daw sila magkakapareho. And the difference will determine who achieves and who falls short of success. Fellow Rotarians, as we settle into our new future, the question of effective leadership, once that we combined with resilience, is once again under debate. With leaders walking into change future of work required different skills that we thought they would. Kung ako ang tatanungin nyo, hindi na po implementable ang lahat ng mga plans and programs that are readily available doon sa ating mga manuscript. Simply because, although they are fundamentals, what is lacking is the action plan. Because the way we will do those things to accomplish those sets of goals will mean inclusion of the COVID-19 into the equation. The answer to all those things that will differ is almost and undoubtedly yes. The world shifted to remote work overnight, and many organizations still unraveling what that means for them. Leaders and managers are having to navigate their responsibilities in a way they anticipated while members are adapting to online life. Hindi natin maiiwasan ito. We are still living to an online environment. The process was smoother for some than others, but everyone is figuring out ways to persevere and press on. There are many different and examples of what it takes to be a successful, resilient leader. You want someone who is great at problem solving, but can also balance the needs of a diverse group of team members. Someone who can keep projects on track while others, members, keep members from burning out. Organizations have never needed solid membership more, but the key traits of being a great leader are shifting in the face of our new reality. Leaders need to inspire and motivate, even when faced with challenges, adapting to a new life under the shadow of a pandemic. How we face our new normal, our new future, back will be a defining moment for modern leaders like us. Fellow Rotarians, President-elect, in closing, allow me to share with you my closing statement as we try to see this pandemic with the glimmer light of future ahead. In the only thing constant in our life, no less than, is change. Thank you very much and have a pleasant good evening.
Thank you, RA. Rotary still has in our Rotary clubs to be our goals. You have open in mind next for our speaker. Our pick.
Doc, I think you're experiencing, we couldn't hear you.
I think the sound is not, clear properly.
Yeah,
Please.
I think it's her signal po.
Okay, allow me to please take over. Thank you very much, Arpik
I
Mondakaya,
hope
for
you
that.
hear me. Okay.
Is it okay? Are you in?
Stick and futuristic presentation of leadership situation in our Rotary clubs nowadays. We have learned that we need based on our in the implementation of our club goals. You have opened our eyes and minds that we need to reorganize our plan of action every year. Thank you very much. And speaker,
Okay, let me please allow me to just read the
I'll do
chats.
it, IDS. So it's really an honor, our dear speaker. So we'd like to present you the certificate of appreciation presented to ARPIC PP Ramon Dacayo of Rotary Club of May Kawayan East in grateful recognition and appreciation for sharing your time and expertise as our resource speaker with the topic Leading the New Future Back, the Value of Resilient Leadership. During the virtual continuing preparatory for our President's-elect training seminar at 3810, giving full meaning to the principal ideals of Rotary International's motto, Service Above Self, presented this 11th day of December 2020 via Zoom, signed our ARCPIC PDG Ernie Choa, DGE Robert Koa, and IDS Edwin Seymour Chu. Thank you so much again, Sir Ramon. Okay. Are we good? Over to you, Cos.